The cemetery here in downtown Macon has some of the most beautiful and picturesque graves in the state. The only graveyard in Georgia which I think betters it is Savannah, but over to my left you have the section that slaves were buried in. And from 1840 to 1864, roughly 1,000 people were buried here. Now none of them have any markers anymore, but we know from public records that about 961 people lie in this field. And here is Reverend George Eakley, and this was erected by the Colored Mechanics Society of Macon. And you can see that this whole cemetery here, right adjacent to the Rose Hill Cemetery, is the Black Cemetery. And this was started by basically a South that still practiced slavery, and you can see that very few of the graves are marked, but in this section specifically there are 961 people. And there's been some work recently with markers and ground penetrating radar to determine where the burials actually are. Every white flag here represents an entire life, a story, somebody in servitude. About 1,000 people in this section of the cemetery were slaves, and burials continued in this part of the cemetery in Macon up until very recently. This is still a historically black cemetery, and those plots remain in the family lines of the local black community. And in the historically black part of the cemetery here you have Abraham McGregor, the founder of the Relief Society and a member of the Methodist Church of the Gospel for 19 years, founder of the Macon Mechanics Society, which seems to have been a sort of temperance society reaching out to the colored community, if not actually members of the colored community, because to be buried here, I believe you had to be in that community, at least back in the day. And it's really fascinating how well this grave is preserved. It says that the badge of the male was blue and white tassel, and female was a blue and white or blue and black sash, which was kind of interesting how this would have been an early secret society or a kind of fraternal order that helped keep communities together in hard times. And here's another grave of a member of the Benevolent Society, that of Judy Nixon, who died in 1860, a consistent member of the Baptist Church and for more than 2 decades, an organizer in the Benevolent Society. A person who helped the poor. He that giveth to the poor lendeth to the Lord. And here too is evidence that they took their sashes pretty seriously.